On Mother's Day, my daughter looked me in the eye in front of the entire family and said, "Old women who abandon their children don't deserve to be called mother," right after rejecting the gift I had made for her with so much love. Everyone froze. My son, Ryan, dropped his fork onto his plate. Ryan's wife, Sarah, looked down at the floor. The cousins stopped their conversations mid-sentence. Even the kids running around the backyard came into the living room, sensing that something terrible was happening. I stood there, paralyzed, with that hand-quilted throw blanket slipping from my trembling hands. I had spent weeks making it. My 60-year-old fingers ached every night after stitching her initials with gold thread. I poured my soul into every stitch, remembering the little girl she used to be, the one I raised alone after becoming a widow. But Jessica hadn't even opened it completely. She had tossed it onto her elegant dining room table as if it were an old rag, and now she looked at me with a contempt that pierced right through my chest. "How dare you come here on Mother's Day?" she continued, raising her voice so everyone could hear clearly. "How do you have the nerve to bring me a gift after everything you did to me?" My throat closed up. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, to explain that nothing she was saying was true, but the words wouldn't come out. I felt everyone's eyes pinned on me, judging me, condemning me without knowing the truth. "Mom was always more worried about herself than about us," Jessica told her husband, as if I weren't standing right there. "She left us alone to go work. She never had time for me. And now she comes here playing the victim." Hot tears began to roll down my cheeks. Every word was a lie, but it sounded so convincing coming out of her mouth. She had always been good at that, at twisting reality until it looked like what she wanted. Then my grandson Liam, that 10-year-old boy whom I had raised for the first 5 years of his life, stood up from his chair. His little face was red, his fists clenched at his sides. "That's not true," he shouted with that voice that was still childish but full of courage. "Grandma never abandoned us. It was you, Mom. You were the one who always left me with Grandma." The living room fell into a silence so absolute you could hear the clock on the wall ticking. Jessica went pale. Her husband looked at her, confused. Ryan lifted his head, finally paying real attention. "Liam, go to your room right now," Jessica ordered, her voice trembling. "No." Liam walked toward me and took my hand. His small fingers squeezed mine tightly. "Grandma Eleanor took care of me when you didn't want to. She fed me, she took me to school, she read me stories before bed. And you don't even call her, and you don't let her visit me." Jessica stood up abruptly, knocking her chair backward. "I told you to shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. You're a child." But the damage was already done. I saw how Ryan looked at me now with different eyes, as if for the first time in years he was seeing something that had been right in front of him the whole time. I saw some cousins exchanging uncomfortable glances. I saw Jessica's perfect mask beginning to crack. And I knew that this was just the beginning, because there were secrets buried in this family, lies that Jessica had constructed so carefully over years, and everything was about to come to light in the most painful way possible. But to understand how we got to that moment, to that public humiliation on Mother's Day, I need to tell you the whole story from the beginning. I need you to understand who I really am, and who my daughter Jessica is behind that facade of the perfect mother and successful woman. It all started 35 years ago, when Jessica was barely 2 years old and my husband died in a construction accident. I was left alone with 2 children, no money, and no family nearby who could help me. Ryan was 5 years old, and Jessica was just a baby who still needed a bottle at night. I remember sitting at my husband's funeral, with Jessica crying in my arms and Ryan clinging to my leg, asking myself how I was going to survive. We had no savings. The workers' compensation from the company was miserable. It barely covered the burial and 2 months of rent. I got a job at a textile factory. The pay was bad, but it was the only thing I had found that allowed me to bring the kids with me for the first few months. I left them in a corner of the sewing room, playing with scraps of fabric while I worked 12 hours a day. When Jessica was 4 and Ryan was 7, I got a second job cleaning office buildings downtown at night. An elderly neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, agreed to stay with the kids while I left at 10 at night and came back at 4 in the morning. I slept 3 hours, woke the kids up, gave them breakfast, took them to school, and ran off to the factory. My body lived on autopilot, running on black coffee, and the sheer necessity of keeping my children alive and fed. On weekends, I did other people's laundry to earn a few extra dollars. My hands were always red, cracked from the detergent and cold water, but every penny I earned went toward food, rent, school supplies, and the shoes the kids needed every 6 months because their feet wouldn't stop growing. I never bought myself new clothes, never went to a beauty salon, never went out to eat at a restaurant, and never took a day off. Every sacrifice was worth it when I saw Ryan and Jessica healthy, clean, with their uniforms pressed and their notebooks full. Jessica was a difficult child from a young age. She always wanted more. She always compared herself to the girls from rich families at her school. She cried because she didn't have name-brand sneakers, because her backpack wasn't from the expensive store, because our apartment was small and old. When I grow up, I'm going to be rich, she would tell me with that determination I mistook for healthy ambition. And I'm never going to live like we live now. I would nod, tired, thinking it was natural for a child to want a better life. I didn't see the warning signs. I didn't understand that Jessica was starting to be ashamed of me, of our poverty, of everything I represented. Ryan was different. He understood our struggles. He helped me with Jessica, did his chores without me asking. When he turned 14, he got a job delivering newspapers in the mornings and gave me half of what he earned. "So you don't have to work so much, Mom," he would say, putting the crumpled bills in my hand. But Jessica only saw that other girls had more. She started lying to her friends about our situation. She said I was a maid who lived with them, not her mother. She said our apartment was temporary while our big house was being remodeled. The first time I heard her tell those lies, she was barely 9 years old. We were at the school entrance, and she was talking to a classmate. When she saw me arrive to pick her up, her face transformed into pure shame. "That's her. She works for my family," she told her friend, pointing at me as if I were invisible. That night I cried silently in my bed, biting my pillow so the kids wouldn't hear me. My own daughter had denied me. My own daughter was ashamed of everything I did for her. But I kept going, because that is what mothers do. We keep loving, even when they break our hearts. We keep working, even when they don't thank us. We keep giving, even when we receive nothing in return. Jessica finished high school with good grades. I had saved for years, penny by penny, to be able to help pay for her college. It was barely $3,000, but it was my entire life of sacrifices kept in a shoebox under my bed. "This is for your future," I told her on her graduation day, handing her the envelope with the money. "So you can study, so you can be someone in life." Jessica took the money without even looking me in the eye. "It's not much," she said, "but I guess I'll have to make do." That was all her gratitude after 18 years of sacrifices. Those were the only words I received for working 3 jobs throughout her entire childhood. For not sleeping, for not eating so she could, for aging prematurely so she could have a chance. Jessica went to a big state university to study business administration. During the first year, she still lived with me, but she spent less and less time at home. She went out with new friends, people with money, and came back increasingly distant, colder, more ashamed of her origins. In her second year of college, she met Kyle, a guy from a wealthy family. They started dating, and Jessica changed completely. Now she wore expensive clothes that I didn't know where she got, dyed her hair in fancy salons, and almost never slept at home. One day she arrived crying, desperate, her hands shaking. She was 20 years old and had just taken a pregnancy test. She was expecting a baby with Kyle, who had disappeared as soon as he heard the news. "What am I going to do, Mom?" She wept in my arms that night, finally becoming the little girl I remembered. "I can't have a baby now. Kyle left. I have no money. I'm going to have to drop out of college." I hugged her, drying her tears, feeling all her fear and pain as if it were mine. "We're going to get through this," I promised her, like we always have. And that was how Liam came into our lives. Jessica had him, but she could barely take care of him. She was depressed, resentful, angry at the world. I took the baby in my arms, and from that moment, I became his de facto mother. Liam was barely 2 weeks old when Jessica started going out at night again. She would leave him with me without warning, disappear for hours, sometimes for whole days. I fed him with formula I bought with my own money, changed his diapers, rocked him when he cried in the early morning. Ryan, who was already 23 and working for a construction company, helped me when he could. He bought diapers, brought food, stayed with the baby when I had to work. He was the uncle who seemed more like a father than Liam's own mother did. "Jessica is lost," Ryan would tell me, while holding Liam in his arms. "But you can't keep doing everything, Mom. You already work too much." He was right. But what else could I do? Liam was my grandson, my blood, and I wasn't going to let him suffer for his mother's mistakes. So I added another weight to my already tired back and kept going. Jessica ended up dropping out of college in her 3rd year. She got a job as a receptionist at a hotel, but she spent her entire paycheck on herself. Clothes, makeup, nights out with friends. She never bought anything for Liam. She never gave me money to help with the child's expenses. When Liam was 1 year old, Jessica met Andrew at the hotel where she worked. He was an executive at a large company, 35 years old, had money, and a luxurious condo in a wealthy part of the city. For Jessica, Andrew was her ticket out of poverty. She started visiting us less. When she did come, she barely looked at Liam. I watched as the boy reached his little arms out to her, and how Jessica pulled away, uncomfortable, as if her own son were a shameful reminder of her past. "I'm building a new life," she told me one afternoon when I asked why she didn't spend time with her son. "Andrew doesn't know I have a son, and I'm not going to tell him yet. I need this to work. Mom, it's my chance to get out of this misery." I felt something break inside me at that moment. My daughter was denying the existence of her own son for a man with money. She was willing to abandon Liam completely to pretend to be someone she wasn't. "Jessica, that boy is your responsibility," I told her, pointing to Liam, who was playing on the floor with some wooden blocks Ryan had bought him. "You can't just pretend he doesn't exist. You take good care of him," she replied, putting on her coat to leave. "It's better this way. I don't know how to be a mother, Mom. I never wanted to be. It was a mistake, and now I have to move on with my life." She left and didn't come back for 3 months. 3 months in which Liam took his first steps, said his first words, learned to eat by himself. 3 months in which I was his mom in everything except name. By the time Liam was 2, I had left the factory job because my body couldn't take it anymore. My knees hurt constantly. My back was destroyed from lifting so much weight for years. I got a less physically demanding job at a retail store, but the pay was lower. Ryan helped me with $200 a month, but it wasn't enough for everything. The rent, the food, Liam's diapers, his medicine when he got sick. I started falling behind on payments. The landlord threatened to kick us out every month. Meanwhile, Jessica posted photos on social media with Andrew. Dinners at expensive restaurants, weekend trips, designer clothes. She lived like a queen, while her son and I barely survived. One day she appeared at my door with news. "Andrew and I are getting married," she announced with a huge smile. "The wedding will be in 6 months. Small, just close family." "Did you tell him about Liam?" I asked, although I already knew the answer. "No," she admitted, without a shred of shame. "And I'm not going to tell him until we're married, and I'm sure. Later I can bring Liam to live with me, but not now. Now I need things to solidify. Jessica, that boy is 2 years old. He's waiting for you. He asks for you every day." "Well, tell him I'm working," she replied coldly. "It's not that hard, Mom. You're good at inventing excuses." That was the last time I tried to reason with her before her wedding. I realized that my daughter had turned into someone I didn't recognize, someone capable of abandoning her own son without remorse, someone for whom money and social status were more important than blood and love. The wedding was exactly how she wanted it. Small, elegant, expensive. I was invited, but with one condition. I couldn't bring Liam. Jessica didn't want anyone from Andrew's family to know of his existence yet. I sat at that beautiful ceremony, in that hall decorated with imported flowers, watching my daughter promise eternal love to a man to whom she was lying about something as fundamental as having a child. Ryan was by my side, equally uncomfortable, equally disappointed in what our Jessica had become. After the wedding, Jessica moved into Andrew's mansion in the most exclusive neighborhood in the city. Another 6 months passed before she finally told him the truth about Liam. By then, the boy was already 3 years old and called me Mom without me correcting him. Because it was easier that way. because I was the only mother he had truly known. Andrew's reaction was, surprisingly, better than Jessica expected. He accepted Liam, said they could bring him to live with them, that he would raise him as his own son. He was a good man, much better than Jessica deserved. But when the moment came to take Liam away, the boy didn't want to go. He cried, clinging to my neck, screaming that he wanted to stay with me, that I was his mom. Jessica ripped him from my arms with a strength I didn't know she had. "He is my son," she told me through gritted teeth. "And he is coming with me now. You've done enough." Liam's screams, as Jessica put him in the car, haunted me for weeks. Ryan had to hold me up because my legs stopped working. It felt as if my heart had been ripped out of my chest. During the first few months, Jessica let me see Liam once a week. The boy arrived quiet, scared, different. He told me he missed sleeping with me, that he missed our small apartment, that in the big house he felt alone. "Mom isn't there much," Liam whispered to me while I hugged him. "She goes out a lot, and when she is there, she gets mad because I cry. She says I'm big now and shouldn't cry so much." My heart broke every time I had to give him back. But what could I do? Legally, he was her son. I had no rights. I was just the grandmother who had raised him for the first 3 years of his life. When Liam turned 4, the visits started to get spaced out. Jessica would cancel at the last minute, saying they were busy, that they had plans, that Liam was tired. The excuses changed, but the result was the same. She was systematically distancing me from my grandson. Ryan tried to talk to her. "Mom raised him, Jessica. You can't just cut her out of Liam's life like this." "I can do whatever I want," she replied. "He is my son, and frankly, I don't think it's healthy for him to spend so much time with Mom. Liam needs to adapt to his new life, not constantly be reminded of the past." The past, that is what she called the 3 years I dedicated to raising her son while she pretended he didn't exist. The past was me getting up at dawn when Liam had a fever. The past was me spending my last dollar to buy him milk. The past was me singing him to sleep, taking him to the park, teaching him to talk, to walk, to be a happy child. By the time Liam was 5, Jessica had completely rewritten history. Now she told everyone that she had raised her son alone, that it had been very difficult but she had achieved it, that Andrew had arrived to save them both from a hard life. I didn't exist in her version of events. Or worse, when she mentioned me, it was to paint me as the absent mother who had never been there for her. The irony was so cruel that sometimes it was hard for me to breathe. Visits with Liam became once a month, then every 2 months. The boy was starting to forget me. He no longer ran to hug me like before. He looked at me with a mixture of confusion and distance, as if he were trying to remember who I really was. "Are you my grandma?" he asked me one day when he was 6. "Mom says you worked a lot and barely saw us when she was a little girl." There it was. Jessica had started to poison Liam against me. She was putting her lies into his head, rewriting our history, turning me into the villain of a narrative she had invented to justify her own abandonment. "Yes, my love," I answered him with a broken voice. "I worked a lot, but it was because I wanted your mom and your Uncle Ryan to have food and clothes and school. Everything I did was out of love." Liam nodded, but I saw that he didn't entirely believe me. He no longer knew who to believe. And Jessica was winning that battle because she had the power, the money, and total control over him. Ryan got married when Liam was 7. His wife was a sweet woman named Sarah, and although we didn't have much money, they had a simple and beautiful wedding. Jessica arrived with Andrew, dressed as if she were going to a gala, and barely spoke to me the entire celebration. I watched her talking to other family members, telling her version of how she had made it on her own, how she had overcome so many difficulties. The cousins who didn't know us well believed her. They looked at her with admiration. No one knew the truth except Ryan, Sarah, and me. That night, after the wedding, Ryan came to my house. He found me crying in the kitchen, looking at old photos of Liam as a baby. "It's not fair, Mom," he said, sitting next to me. "She's erasing you from the story. She's acting as if you don't exist." "I know, son. But what can I do? I don't have money for lawyers. I don't have proof of everything I did. I only have my word against hers, and she lives in a mansion while I can barely pay the rent." Ryan hugged me while I wept. "Someday the truth will come out," he promised me. "Someday Liam will understand who really raised him." But the years passed, and that day seemed further and further away. When Liam turned 8, Jessica stopped answering my calls completely. She blocked my phone number. She changed the locks on her house so I couldn't show up unannounced, as I had done a few times when I was desperate to see my grandson. I tried to go to Liam's school to see him come out, but Jessica found out and spoke to the principals. She told them I was an unstable person, that I had mental problems, that I couldn't get near her son. They banned me from entering the school grounds. Ryan tried to intervene again. He went to Jessica's house, confronted Andrew, explained the whole truth to him. Andrew seemed uncomfortable, as if he were finally seeing cracks in the perfect story his wife had built. I didn't know anything about this, Andrew admitted. Jessica told me her mother abandoned them when she was a child, that you guys had reconnected recently, but the relationship was complicated. That is a lie. Ryan showed him photos on his phone. Photos of our childhood, of Mom working, of Mom taking care of baby Liam. Our mother sacrificed everything for us, and Jessica is erasing her from Liam's life because she is ashamed of her past. Andrew promised to talk to Jessica, but nothing changed. If anything, things got worse. Jessica started telling Liam that I didn't want to see him, that I was sick, that I had decided to stay away because I was too old and tired to deal with kids. All lies. Each one of them was like a knife in my back. Liam's birthdays passed without me being able to be there. Christmases, school plays, the important moments of his childhood. I missed them all because my own daughter had erased me from her life and from my grandson's life. I fell into a deep depression. I stopped eating well, sleeping well. My health worsened. I developed diabetes from the constant stress. Ryan and Sarah visited me often, worried, trying to keep me afloat. Mom, you have to take care of yourself, Ryan would say. Jessica isn't worth destroying yourself like this. But it was easy to say. Hard to do when your own daughter has turned you into a ghost, when the grandson you raised doesn't even remember you well anymore. 2 more years passed. Liam turned 10, and I hadn't seen a recent photo of him. I didn't know what his voice sounded like now. I didn't know if he still liked the hot cocoa I used to make him. I didn't know if he remembered the songs I sang to put him to sleep. Ryan told me what he could. Sometimes he saw Jessica at family gatherings on Andrew's side, and Liam went with them. The boy had grown. He was tall for his age. He looked like his grandfather, my late husband. He asks about you, Ryan told me quietly. He asked if I remembered his grandma Eleanor, and I told him yes, that she thinks about you all the time. But Jessica tells him that you don't want to see him. Every word was torture. Liam thought I had abandoned him. He thought I didn't love him, when the truth was that there wasn't a single day I didn't think of him, didn't cry for him, didn't pray to be able to hug him again. Then the invitation arrived. A white, elegant envelope with gold lettering. It was for Mother's Day. Jessica was organizing a family brunch at her house, and I was invited. Ryan also received an invitation. He called me immediately. It's a trap, Mom. Don't go. Jessica never does anything without a motive. But it's my chance to see Liam, I told him, feeling a spark of hope after so much time in the dark. It's been 2 years. I need to see him. Mom, please. Something isn't right about this. Jessica wouldn't invite you after all this time if she weren't planning something. Ryan was right, but I was desperate. I needed to see my grandson even if it was just one more time. I needed him to know I hadn't forgotten him, that I still loved him. I spent what little I had buying materials to make that quilted throw blanket. I worked on it for 2 weeks. Every stitch was a prayer. Every embroidered flower was a memory of when Jessica was little and still loved me. On the day of the brunch, I dressed in my best clothes, although they were old and out of style. Ryan and Sarah came to pick me up. On the way, Ryan kept repeating that we should be careful, that something wasn't right. When we arrived at Jessica's mansion, there were many cars parked outside. I recognized some. They were relatives on Andrew's side, people who had never seen me before, who only knew Jessica's version of who I was. The house was beautifully decorated, balloons, flowers, a long table full of expensive food. Jessica appeared in an elegant dress, perfectly made up, smiling like the perfect hostess she had always wanted to be. Mom, she said, kissing my cheek mechanically. So good that you came. Come in, come in. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were cold. Ryan was right. Something was wrong. This wasn't a reconciliation. This was something else. Then I saw him. Liam was in the backyard, playing with other kids. He had grown so much. He was almost a young man now. My heart raced. I wanted to run to him, hug him, tell him how much I had missed him. But I held back. I didn't want to cause a scene. I didn't want to ruin whatever Jessica had planned. I just wanted a quiet moment with my grandson. The brunch began. Everyone sat around the enormous table. I was at one end, far from Jessica and Liam. It was as if they had put me there on purpose, isolated, separated from the rest of the family. Jessica made a toast. She thanked everyone for coming, spoke about how important Mother's Day was. Her words were beautiful but empty. I knew her. I knew this was a performance. After lunch, when coffee and dessert were served, I decided it was time. I took out the quilt I had made and approached Jessica. My heart was beating so fast I thought everyone could hear it. "Happy Mother's Day, daughter," I said, handing her the package wrapped in simple paper. "I made this for you, with a lot of love." Jessica took the package, and everyone stared. The dining room filled with an expectant silence. She opened the paper, saw the quilt embroidered with her initials, and her expression changed completely. It wasn't gratitude. It wasn't emotion. It was pure disgust. What happened next was exactly what Ryan had feared. What I, in my desperation to see Liam, hadn't wanted to accept. Jessica had planned this. She had invited me to destroy me publicly, to humiliate me in front of everyone, to ensure I could never get close to her or Liam again. And the worst part is that I had fallen directly into her trap. Jessica let the quilt fall onto the table as if it were trash. The sound of the heavy fabric hitting the wood resonated in the absolute silence of the dining room. All eyes were glued on us. Andrew's cousins, his friends, the neighbors who had been invited, everyone watched with morbid curiosity. "I don't want it," said Jessica with a strong, clear voice, ensuring every person in that room could hear her perfectly. "I don't need handmade gifts, as if we were poor." I felt my cheeks burn with shame. My hands trembled as I watched the blanket I had made with so much love lying there like a useless rag. I had spent entire nights stitching every initial, every flower, remembering the girl she had been. "Jessica, I just wanted," I started to say, but she interrupted me. "Wanted what, Mom?" Her voice rose in volume, and there was something rehearsed in it, as if she had been practicing this moment. "Did you want to come here on Mother's Day and play the victim? Play the loving mother after all these years?" Ryan stood up from his chair. "Jessica, enough. Don't do this." "No, Ryan, let me speak." Jessica turned toward the guests, as if she were giving a carefully prepared speech. "You all think she is the sweet little grandma, the sacrificing mother. But you don't know the truth." My stomach twisted. This was worse than I had imagined. Jessica wasn't just going to reject my gift. She was going to destroy my reputation in front of everyone. "This woman abandoned us when we were children," Jessica continued, pointing at me, as if I were a criminal. "She worked all the time. She was never home. Ryan and I grew up practically alone. And now she comes here pretending to be Mother of the Year." "That's not true," said Sarah, Ryan's wife, with a firm voice. "Eleanor worked to feed you, to pay for your education." "She worked because she wanted to," shouted Jessica, "because she preferred to be anywhere but with us. And when I had Liam, when I most needed her support, where was she? Criticizing me, judging me, making me feel bad for being a single mother." Every word was a lie so big it was hard for me to breathe. I had been the one who took care of Liam day and night for 3 years. I had been the one who got up at dawn, who spent my last penny on diapers and milk. And now she was rewriting everything in front of a room full of strangers. "Jessica, stop." Andrew's voice sounded uncomfortable from his place at the head of the table. "I don't think this is the moment." "It's not the moment?" Jessica turned to her husband with eyes shining with fake tears. "When is it going to be the moment, Andrew? I've been carrying this for years, years feeling like I'm not enough because my own mother never made me feel loved." There it was, the complete performance. The tears she could produce when she needed them. The victim tone of voice she had perfected. Everything designed so I would look like the monster, and she like the wounded daughter who only sought validation. "Old women who abandon their children don't deserve to be called mother," she finally said, looking me straight in the eye with a hatred so pure it made me take a step back. Tears began to roll down my cheeks, without me being able to control them. My entire body shook. I felt everyone's gazes on me, judging me, condemning me based on the lies they had just heard. Then something happened that no one expected. Liam, who had been sitting quietly during the entire exchange, stood up from his chair. His face was red, his fists clenched at his sides. "That's not true," his childish voice cut the air like a whip. "Grandma never abandoned us. It was you, Mom." Jessica went pale. "Liam, sit down right now." "No." Liam walked toward me with determined steps. "Grandma Eleanor took care of me when you didn't want to. She fed me. She took me to the park. She read me stories. I remember, Mom. I remember everything." "You don't know what you're talking about." Jessica tried to maintain composure, but her voice trembled. "You were very little. Your memory is confused." "It's not confused." Liam reached me and took my hand in his. His small fingers squeezed mine with a strength I didn't know he had. "I remember Grandma's apartment. I remember how her kitchen smelled. I remember she sang to me to sleep and you were never there." The dining room exploded in murmurs. The guests looked at each other, confused, starting to doubt the narrative Jessica had just presented. "You took me to live with you guys when I was 3, Liam continued, his voice increasingly firm. "And I cried every night because I wanted to go back to Grandma. But you wouldn't let me call her. You told me she didn't love me, that she was too busy. But it was a lie, wasn't it?" Jessica opened her mouth, but no sound came out. For the first time in years, my daughter had no words. She didn't have a prepared lie fast enough to cover what her own son had just revealed. "Liam, go to your room," she managed to say finally, but her voice sounded weak, desperate. "No." Liam clung tighter to my hand. "I'm not going to lie for you anymore, Mom. I'm not going to pretend I don't remember. Grandma Eleanor is the one who raised me, and you treated her badly. You took her away from me and made me believe she didn't love me." Ryan walked over and put his hand on Liam's shoulder. "He's a brave boy," he said, looking at Jessica with a mixture of disappointment and sadness. "Braver than you, because he's telling the truth even though it costs him." Andrew stood up from his chair, looking completely lost. "Jessica, is it true what Liam says? Did your mother raise him for the first few years?" "Me? I was building my life," Jessica stuttered, desperately looking for a way out of this. "I was young. I needed help. Yes, Mom helped me with Liam. But that doesn't mean—" "It wasn't help," I interrupted her, finally finding my voice after the shock. "I raised him completely. Jessica, you disappeared for days, for weeks. I paid for everything. I got up at dawn. I was his mother in everything except name. That's not true." Jessica tried to defend herself, but her face said otherwise. She was terrified because her castle of lies was crumbling before her eyes. "I have photos," said Ryan suddenly, taking out his phone. "Photos of Mom with baby Liam. Photos of her at the park with him, feeding him, bathing him. And you know what, Jessica? There isn't a single photo of you with him in those first 3 years. Not one." The silence that followed was deafening. The guests were starting to understand that they had witnessed something very different from what Jessica had planned. It wasn't a wounded mother confronting her negligent mother. It was a liar being exposed by her own son. "You can all leave," said Jessica suddenly, her voice cracking. "The brunch is over. Please, leave." But no one moved. It was as if they were glued to their chairs, fascinated by the drama unfolding in front of them. Some took out their phones, probably to tell others about what they were witnessing. "Jessica." Andrew spoke with a calm voice, but there was disappointment in his eyes. "I think you and I need to talk. In private. There is nothing to talk about." Jessica tried to maintain control, but real tears, not the fake ones from before, began to fall down her face. "Liam is a child. He doesn't know what he's saying." "I know exactly what I'm saying." Liam hugged my waist, hiding his face in my side. "And I'm not going to let you treat Grandma badly anymore. She is the best person I know, and you have no right to talk to her like that." I felt something breaking inside me, but this time it wasn't pain. It was relief. It was gratitude. It was pure love for this brave boy who had decided to defend the truth, even if it meant confronting his own mother. Ryan walked over and put his arm around my shoulders. "We're leaving, Mom. You've done enough coming here. You don't have to put up with this. I nodded, unable to speak. Liam wouldn't let go of me. Can I go with you, Grandma? He asked, with a small voice. Can I stay with you tonight? Liam, you are not going anywhere. Jessica took a step toward us, but Andrew stopped her with his hand. Let him go, said Andrew. Clearly there are things you haven't told me, Jessica, and I need time to process all this. Are you going to believe me or a 10-year-old child? Shouted Jessica, completely losing composure. I am your wife. You are my wife, who clearly has lied to me about many things, replied Andrew with a tired voice. Liam, go with your grandma if you want. Your mother and I are going to talk. The guests started to stand up, uncomfortable, looking to get out of that situation as quickly as possible. I heard their murmurs as they passed by us. Some looked at me with sympathy, others with curiosity, all processing what they had just witnessed. We left that house, Ryan, Sarah, Liam, and I. The boy didn't let go of my hand at any moment. In the car, he finally broke down and cried in my arms like he hadn't done since he was little. I'm sorry, Grandma, he sobbed. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. I was afraid Mom would get madder. Shh, my love. I rocked him like when he was a baby. You have nothing to apologize for. You were very brave today. So brave. But as we drove back to my small apartment, I knew this wasn't over. Jessica wasn't going to accept this defeat so easily. And I was right. What came next was worse than any of us could have imagined. That night, Liam slept in my apartment for the first time in 7 years. I tucked him into the same sofa where he had slept so many times when he was little, made him hot cocoa like before, and sang him the same songs I used to sing to him. The boy fell asleep, clinging to my hand, as if he were afraid that if he let go, I would disappear again. Ryan and Sarah stayed with me until late. We were sitting in the kitchen, drinking tea, processing everything that had happened. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was calls from Jessica that I ignored one after another. She's going to come for him tomorrow, said Ryan with a worried voice. Legally, she has every right. She's his mother. I know, I whispered, looking toward the living room where Liam slept soundly. But at least I had this night with him. At least he knows I never abandoned him. At 2 a.m, someone knocked on the door with such force I thought they were going to knock it down. It was Jessica. I could hear her voice from outside, screaming my name, demanding I return her son. Ryan opened the door. Jessica entered like a hurricane, with her makeup smeared and her clothes disheveled. Andrew came behind her, looking exhausted and confused. Where is my son? Demanded Jessica, looking around frantically. He is sleeping, I told her, putting myself between her and the living room, and I'm not going to let you wake him up and upset him more than he already is. What do you mean you're not going to let me? Jessica laughed with hysterical laughter. You have no right over him. He is my son, and I'm taking him right now. Andrew put his hand on Jessica's shoulder. Honey, calm down. The boy is sleeping. We can come for him tomorrow morning. No, Jessica shook off his grip. I'm taking him now. This old woman is trying to take him from me. No one is trying to take anything from you, said Sarah with a firm voice. Liam wanted to come with his grandmother because he was upset. That is all. Of course he was upset, shouted Jessica. Because she manipulated him. She put ideas in his head against me. That is parental alienation, and I can sue you for that. The threat hung in the air. Parental alienation. Big words that Jessica had learned on the internet. Words she could use as weapons against me. I didn't manipulate anyone, I said with the calmest voice I could manage. Liam told the truth, his truth, and you know it. What I know is that you ruined my Mother's Day. Jessica's eyes shone with hate. You came to my house, humiliated me in front of all my friends, and now you steal my son. But this isn't going to stay like this. Jessica, Andrew spoke with a tired voice. In the car, you told me things I didn't know, about how your mother raised Liam, about how you were absent. This is more complicated than I thought. Now you're going to take her side. Jessica turned to her husband with fury. After everything I told you about how she abandoned me, you told me a version. Andrew looked at her with disappointment. But today I saw a very different one. And your own son confirmed it. Liam appeared in the doorway of the living room, rubbing his eyes. Mom, what are you doing here? I came for you, my love. Jessica changed her tone of voice completely. now sweet and maternal. Let's go home. I don't want to, Liam hid behind me. I want to stay with Grandma. Liam, don't be ridiculous. Jessica's mask started to crack again. You have to come home now. Why? Asked the boy with a trembling voice. So you can lock me in my room again? So you can tell me Grandma doesn't love me? So you can keep lying? I never. Jessica started, but Andrew interrupted her. Yes, you lied, he said, his voice full of deep sadness. You lied to me about your mother. You lied to me about Liam. Probably you have lied to me about many other things. Andrew? No. Jessica tried to approach him, but Andrew stepped back. I'm going to sleep in a hotel tonight, announced Andrew. Liam can stay with his grandmother if he wants. You and I are going to talk tomorrow, when we are both calmer. But Jessica, I need you to understand something. I can't be with someone who lies to their family this way. Are you leaving me? Jessica's voice went up an octave. For this old woman who abandoned us? I am taking some time to think. Andrew headed toward the door. And stop calling your mother that. Clearly, she did much more for you than you told me. Andrew left, leaving Jessica standing in the middle of my living room, shaking with rage. She looked at all of us as if we were enemies, as if the whole world were against her. This is your fault. She pointed her finger at me. You ruined my life. You ruined my marriage. And now you are taking my son from me. No one is taking anything from you, said Ryan. But Jessica, you have to face what you did. You have to stop lying. I didn't lie about anything important. Jessica wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I just said what I had to say to get ahead. Is it wrong to want a better life? It's not wrong to want a better life, I told her softly. It is wrong to destroy others to get it. It is wrong to lie about who helped you. It is wrong to distance your son from someone who loves him. Don't you dare give me moral lessons, Jessica spat the words. You were never there when I needed you. I was always there. My voice broke. Every day of your life, Jessica. I worked until I destroyed my body, so you and Ryan had food, clothes, education. I raised your son when you didn't want to, and all I ask is that you recognize the truth. The truth is that I made my life by myself. Jessica lifted her chin defiantly. And I don't need your validation or your forgiveness. Then leave, said Ryan, opening the door. But Liam stays here tonight. Tomorrow we will talk calmly about what follows. Jessica looked at us all with a hatred so intense it gave me chills. You are going to regret this, she said with a low and threatening voice. All of you are going to regret it. She left, slamming the door so hard it made the walls shake. Liam ran to my arms and cried. Ryan locked the door, and Sarah closed the curtains. We all knew this wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. The following days were a nightmare. Jessica started a campaign on social media, painting me as a toxic grandmother who was trying to take her son. She posted dramatic messages about mothers having to protect their children from manipulative relatives. Her friends supported her in the comments. They shared her posts. They tagged me in horrible publications. My phone wouldn't stop ringing with messages from unknown numbers calling me a bitter old woman, kidnapper, manipulator. Ryan tried to defend me on social media, but it was useless. Jessica had more followers, more friends with money, more influence. Her version of events was spreading fast, and people believed her because she knew how to present herself as the perfect victim. Andrew didn't return to the house. According to Ryan, who spoke with him occasionally, he had moved to a hotel and was consulting with lawyers about what to do. The revelation of all Jessica's lies had left him questioning his entire marriage. Liam was still with me. Jessica hadn't come to look for him, which was strange. I knew she was planning something, but I didn't know what. The boy went to school from my house. Ryan took him in the mornings, and I picked him up in the afternoons. 1 week after the Mother's Day disaster, I received a certified letter. It was a legal notification. Jessica was suing me for custody, alleging that I was holding Liam against his will and practicing parental alienation. She can't do this, I told Ryan when he came to see me that night. I didn't hold him. He wanted to stay. I know, Mom, but she is going to say whatever to look good. And she has money for expensive lawyers. I don't have money for lawyers. I felt panic growing in my chest. I don't have money for anything. My pension barely reaches enough to live. I'm going to help you, promised Ryan. And we are going to talk to Andrew. He knows the truth now. Maybe he can help. But Andrew was dealing with his own problems. Jessica was calling him day and night, alternating between begging him to come back and threatening to take everything in a divorce. He was exhausted, confused, trying to decide what to do with a marriage built on lies. Meanwhile, Jessica escalated her smear campaign. She called all the relatives telling her version of events. She called the neighbors in my building saying I had kidnapped her son. She even went to Liam's school to talk to the principals and tell them I didn't have permission to pick him up. I had to take Liam with me everywhere after that, terrified that Jessica would appear and take him while I wasn't looking. The boy was scared, confused, not understanding why his mother was doing all this. "Why is Mom so mad?" he asked me one night while we were having dinner. "I just told the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts, my love," I explained as best I could, "and your mom isn't used to being told she is wrong. I'm going to have to go back to her." His eyes filled with tears. "I don't want to, Grandma. When I'm there, I feel alone, and she is always mad at me." My heart broke into pieces. "I don't know, honey, but I'm going to do everything possible so you are okay, no matter what happens." 2 weeks later, the date of the preliminary hearing arrived. I didn't have a lawyer, so I was going to have to represent myself. Ryan came with me for moral support. Jessica arrived with 2 expensive lawyers, dressed impeccably, with Andrew by her side, although he looked uncomfortable. The judge listened to both sides. Jessica presented her case with perfectly calculated tears, talking about how I had manipulated her son against her, how I had held him illegally, how I was trying to destroy her mother-son relationship. When it was my turn to speak, I could barely articulate a word. I was so nervous, so intimidated by the lawyers and the formal environment. I tried to explain that Liam had come with me voluntarily, that I was only protecting him, that Jessica had lied about our history, but without proof, without documents, without a lawyer representing me well, my words sounded weak compared to the professional presentation Jessica had brought. The judge decided that Liam should return immediately to his mother while the case was investigated further. Seeing Liam crying while Jessica took him from the courthouse was one of the most painful things I had experienced in my life. The boy clung to me, begging not to make him go, and I couldn't do anything. The judge had ordered he return to his mother, and I had no legal power to stop it. "No, Grandma, please," sobbed Liam, while Jessica pulled on his arm. "I don't want to go. Please, calm down, my love," I told him with a broken voice, trying to be strong for him even though I was dying inside. "Everything is going to be okay. I promise I'm going to fight for you." Jessica shot me a look of absolute triumph before getting into her car with Liam. I could see the boy's little face pressed against the rear window, crying as they drove away. Ryan had to hold me because my legs stopped working. During the following weeks, Jessica ensured I couldn't contact Liam in any way. She changed her phone number, took away his tablet so he couldn't send me messages, and forbid him from mentioning me in the house. It was as if I had died to him. Ryan tried to see him sometimes when Andrew took him to the park on weekends, but Jessica was always watching. The poor boy couldn't even get close to speak to his uncle without her intervening. "She is destroying that kid," Ryan told me after every frustrated encounter. "He looks sad all the time, scared, and Jessica has him like a prisoner in that huge house." I fell into a deep depression. I stopped eating, sleeping well. My diabetes worsened so much I had to be hospitalized for 3 days. Ryan and Sarah were extremely worried about me, but I didn't see the point of taking care of myself if I couldn't be with my grandson. "Mom, you have to be strong," Sarah told me, sitting next to my hospital bed. "Liam needs you strong. You can't give up now." She was right, but it was so hard. I felt powerless, defeated, completely destroyed by my own daughter. Meanwhile, Jessica continued with her campaign on social media. Now she posted photos of Liam with captions about how they were healing after the toxic interference of manipulative relatives. Her friends commented things like, "You are so strong, Queen, and children are always better with their mothers." It made me want to vomit every time I saw those posts. But the worst part was that people believed her. No one knew the true story. No one knew she had abandoned that boy for years, and that now she was using him as a pawn in her war against me. Andrew finally separated from Jessica officially 2 months after the Mother's Day incident. According to Ryan, who maintained contact with him, Andrew had discovered more lies. Jessica had been spending money from their joint accounts without telling him. She had invented stories about investments that never existed. She had lied about too many things. "I don't know what is real and what isn't anymore," Andrew had told Ryan. "I thought I knew my wife, but it turns out I married a stranger who is capable of lying about anything to get what she wants." The separation put Jessica in a complicated financial situation. Andrew gave her money for Liam's support, but he had cut all credit cards and shared accounts. The mansion was his, so Jessica had to move to a smaller apartment. I thought maybe this would make her reflect, that maybe losing Andrew, she would understand that her lies had consequences. But instead of that, Jessica blamed me for everything. "You ruined my marriage," she screamed at me over the phone one night when she called just to insult me. "Because of you, Andrew left me. Because of you, I lost everything." "I didn't ruin anything, Jessica," I replied tiredly. "Your own lies caught up with you. I was just trying to protect Liam." "Protect him from what? From his own mother?" She laughed with bitterness. "You are ridiculous, and you are going to regret meddling in my life." She hung up before I could respond. That threat left me with a bad feeling in my stomach. Jessica was desperate, angry, and desperate people do unpredictable things. 1 week later, Ryan arrived at my house pale as a sheet. He brought his laptop and had an expression of absolute fury on his face. "You have to see this, Mom." He opened the laptop and showed me a Facebook post Jessica had published. It was a long, dramatic text, telling a completely invented version of her childhood. It said I had mistreated her physically and emotionally, that I beat her, that I left her without food, that I had been an alcoholic and violent mother. Every word was a lie so big, I lost my breath. But the worst part was that people believed her. The post had hundreds of comments of support. People I didn't even know were calling me a monster, abuser, trash. Some even said I should be in jail. "This is defamation," said Ryan, with his voice trembling with rage. "We can sue her for this." "With what money?" I whispered, feeling tears roll down my cheeks. "I don't have money for lawyers, Ryan. And she knows it." "I'm going to get the money." Ryan closed the laptop with force. "I'm not going to let her keep destroying you like this. This has to stop." But getting money for a lawyer wasn't easy. Ryan had his own expenses. He was saving to buy a house with Sarah. I couldn't ask him to spend his savings on my problems. Jessica's posts continued. Every week she published something new, adding more lies to her narrative. She said I had tried to poison her against her father when she was a child. She said I stole the money she earned in her teenage jobs. She said I had tried to sabotage her relationship with Andrew from the beginning. None of that was true. But how could I prove it? I didn't have proof of what happened 30 years ago. I didn't have witnesses willing to testify in my favor. It was her word against mine. And she had a social media platform with thousands of followers while I barely knew how to use the internet. My health kept getting worse. High blood pressure, uncontrolled diabetes, constant stress. Doctors told me I had to calm down, or I was going to end up with a heart attack. But how could I calm down when my own daughter was dedicating her life to destroying me? One night, 3 months after the hearing, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mrs. Eleanor?" It was a woman's voice I didn't recognize. "I am Liam's teacher at school. I need to speak with you about something important." My heart raced. "Is Liam okay? Did something happen to him?" "Physically he is fine, but I am very worried about him." The teacher lowered her voice as if someone could hear her. "The boy has changed completely since he went back to live with his mother. He no longer participates in class. He cries a lot. He withdraws into himself. And today I found him writing a letter." "A letter?" I asked, confused. "A letter for you?" The teacher paused. "Saying he misses you, that he wants to see you, that his mother doesn't let him speak to you." "Mrs. Eleanor, I know it's not my place to interfere, but that boy is suffering, and I think you should know." I started to cry right there on the phone. Knowing Liam was suffering and I couldn't do anything was torture worse than anything Jessica had done to me directly. "Can you keep that letter?" I asked between sobs. "Please, keep it. It might be important for court." "I already did," replied the teacher. "And I am going to document everything I see. If there is a new hearing, I am willing to testify." That call gave me the first spark of hope I had felt in months. Someone else was seeing what Jessica was doing to Liam. Someone else was willing to tell the truth. I told Ryan immediately. He contacted a lawyer a friend had recommended, someone who sometimes took pro bono cases for families who couldn't pay. The lawyer, an older man named Mr. Sterling, agreed to review my case. "This is complicated," said Sterling after hearing the whole story. "Your daughter has resources, has an established narrative on social media, and you don't have legal custody. But if the teacher testifies, if we can prove the child is suffering emotionally, we have a chance." "What kind of chance?" I asked, almost not daring to have hope. "Of at least getting legally established visitation rights," explained Sterling. "And if things get worse, of seeking for your son, Ryan, or even you to have shared custody based on the fact that you raised the child during his formative years." It was something. It wasn't enough, but it was something. We started to prepare the case. Ryan gathered all the old photos he had of me with baby Liam. The teacher passed us copies of the letter and her notes on the boy's behavior. Sarah wrote a sworn statement about what she had witnessed. But we needed more. We needed something concrete, something that left no doubt that Jessica had lied about everything, and that something was about to arrive in the most unexpected way. One afternoon, Andrew appeared at the door of my apartment. He looked tired, haggard, as if he hadn't slept well in months, but in his hands he carried a shoebox. "Mrs. Eleanor," he said with a grave voice, "I think you need to see this." Inside the box was something that would change everything. Something Jessica had hidden carefully for years, believing no one would ever find it. But Andrew had found it while packing his things from the house they had shared. "They are recordings," explained Andrew, taking an old phone out of the box, "from when Jessica and I started dating. She used to record voice messages for herself, like a spoken diary, and she forgot about this phone when we moved to the mansion." He pressed play, and Jessica's voice filled my small living room. It was from years ago, when Liam was barely 2 years old. "I don't know why I had this baby," said the Jessica of the past in the recording. "It was the worst mistake of my life. But, luckily, my mom kept him. She thinks it's temporary, but I don't plan on going back for him. Let her raise him. I have to focus on Andrew and getting out of poverty once and for all." There were more recordings, dozens of them. In some, Jessica admitted she was lying about her childhood to gain sympathy. In others, she talked about how she planned to distance Liam from me once her situation with Andrew was secured. "When I am married and living well, I'm going to bring Liam to live with me," she said in another recording. "And I'm going to make everyone think I raised him alone. No one has to know it was my mom. That would ruin my image." Every recording was more revealing than the last. It was the definitive proof of everything. I sat on my old sofa, listening to my own daughter's voice, admitting all her lies, all her manipulations, everything she had planned from the beginning. Every word was like a knife in the heart. But at the same time, it was the validation I had been waiting for years. "Why are you bringing me this?" I asked Andrew with a broken voice. "You were married to her. This could be used against her in the divorce." "Because I'm tired of the lies." Andrew sat in the chair across from me, looking defeated. "And because Liam deserves to be with someone who really loves him." When I heard these recordings, I realized that that boy has never been a priority for Jessica. He is just a tool, a way to control and manipulate. Ryan, who had been listening to everything from the kitchen, entered with eyes shining with held-back tears. "This changes everything, Mom. With this, we can prove she lied about everything. There is more." Andrew took an envelope out of the box. Bank statements. During the first 3 years of Liam's life, Jessica never bought anything for him. Not diapers, not milk, not clothes, nothing. "You paid for everything, Mrs. Eleanor. I checked her old accounts when we started the divorce process and it's all there." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After months of feeling powerless, of being attacked and defamed, finally, I had real proof of the truth. "I also have messages," continued Andrew, taking out more papers. "Conversations between Jessica and her friends where she admits she left Liam with you to be able to live her life. Where she laughs about how you believe that someday she is going to thank you for taking care of the boy." Every revelation was more painful than the last, but necessary. Mr. Sterling, the lawyer, arrived that same afternoon after Ryan called him urgently. When he heard the recordings and saw the documents, his eyes lit up. "With this, We can do much more than get visitation rights, said Sterling with contained emotion. We can seek shared custody for you, Mrs. Eleanor. We can prove you were the primary maternal figure during the child's formative years, and that you have a legal right to maintain that relationship. Really? I almost didn't dare to have hope. Really? Sterling nodded. And with the teacher's testimony, plus these proofs, plus Mr. Andrews' testimony, we have a very solid case. We prepared everything meticulously over the following weeks. Sterling filed an emergency motion citing concern for Liam's emotional well-being and attaching all the new evidence. The court scheduled a hearing for 2 weeks later. Jessica found out, of course. And her reaction was exactly what we expected. She escalated everything to the maximum level. She posted on social media that I was legally harassing her, that I was using fake documents to take her son, that it was a smear campaign orchestrated by bitter people. Her followers believed her. They attacked me in comments. They sent me horrible messages. Some even threatened to come to my house. I had to close all my social media accounts, and Ryan had to file a police report for the threats. But the most disturbing thing was when Jessica tried to use Liam as a witness. According to the teacher, who kept me informed, Jessica had started preparing Liam for the hearing. She told him what he had to say, how he had to act, showed him videos of other children testifying in court so he would learn. The poor kid is terrified, the teacher told me over the phone. Yesterday I found him crying in the bathroom. He told me his mom makes him practice what he has to say in front of the judge, that if he doesn't say it right, she is going to get very mad at him. That was pure emotional abuse. Sterling documented everything and added it to our case. Every day that passed, we had more evidence that Liam was not okay with Jessica. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I spent it awake, praying, asking that justice finally be done. Ryan and Sarah stayed with me, the three of us sitting in the living room, drinking tea, waiting for dawn. "It's going to go well, Mom," Ryan repeated every time he saw me on the verge of tears. "This time, we have everything on our side. The truth is going to win." The hearing was in a small family courtroom. When we arrived, Jessica was already there with her 2 expensive lawyers. She looked at me with such intense hatred that I felt its weight physically, but this time I didn't lower my gaze. This time, I had the truth on my side. The judge was a woman in her 50s who looked serious but fair. She listened first to Jessica's lawyers, who presented their version. That I was an obsessive grandmother trying to take the son from a dedicated mother, that the alleged proofs we had were taken out of context, that everything was revenge because Jessica had decided to set healthy boundaries. Then it was Sterling's turn. He played the recordings for the whole room to hear. Jessica's voice admitting she had abandoned Liam, that she planned to lie about who raised him, that I was just a convenient tool until she got what she wanted. I saw Jessica go pale. Her lawyers looked at each other. Clearly, they didn't know of the existence of these recordings. The judge listened attentively, taking notes, her expression becoming increasingly serious. "Your Honor," said Sterling with a clear voice, "these recordings prove without a doubt that Miss Jessica voluntarily abandoned her son during the first 3 years of his life, that it was Mrs. Eleanor who acted as the primary mother during that crucial period of development, and that the narrative Miss Jessica has been presenting publicly is completely false." Then he presented the bank statements. He showed that during those 3 years, Jessica hadn't spent a single dollar on her son, that I, with my minimum pension, had paid for everything: diapers, milk, clothes, medicine, everything. "Do you have anything to say about this?" the judge asked Jessica directly. Jessica stood up, trembling. I was very young. I was going through postpartum depression. I didn't know how to be a mother, and my mom offered to help. The recordings don't sound like someone with postpartum depression," the judge pointed out coldly. "They sound like someone who consciously decided to abandon their child to pursue other interests." "That's not fair." Jessica started to cry. "I'm being judged for things I said in private years ago. Everyone says things when they are angry or frustrated. This wasn't said in a moment of anger," intervened Sterling. "These are multiple recordings over months, showing a consistent pattern of thought and behavior." Then the teacher testified. She spoke about how Liam had changed since he went back to Jessica, about the letters he wrote wanting to come back to me, about how she had found him crying in the bathroom, about how Jessica was pressuring him to lie in court. "That child is being emotionally manipulated," said the teacher with a firm voice. "And as an educator with 20 years of experience, I can say I have seen emotional abuse, and this is it." Jessica's lawyers tried to discredit the teacher, suggesting she was being influenced by me, that she didn't have all the information. But she remained firm in her testimony. Then Andrew testified. He spoke about all the lies Jessica had told him during their marriage, about how he had discovered the recordings, about how, since they separated, Jessica used Liam as a weapon against him, denying visits when she was angry, using the boy to manipulate him. "My ex-wife is capable of lying about anything to get what she wants," said Andrew with a tired voice. "And what hurts me most is realizing she never really loved Liam. She just uses him." "That is a lie," shouted Jessica, losing composure completely. "I love my son. Everything I do is for him." "If you loved him," said the judge with a hard voice, "you wouldn't be using him as a weapon. You wouldn't be manipulating him to lie in court. You wouldn't have spent 3 years pretending he didn't exist." The judge asked for a 30-minute recess to review all the evidence. Those were the longest 30 minutes of my life. Ryan squeezed my hand so hard it hurt, but I didn't ask him to let go. I needed that contact, that connection with someone who truly loved me. When the judge returned, her expression was indecipherable. We all stood up. "I have reviewed all the evidence presented," the judge began. "And I must say this is one of the clearest cases of parental manipulation I have seen in my years in this court." Jessica started crying louder. One of her lawyers put a hand on her shoulder. "The recordings and documents presented demonstrate without a doubt that Miss Jessica voluntarily abandoned her son during a prolonged period," continued the judge. "That it was Mrs. Eleanor who acted as the primary maternal figure during the boy's most formative years, and that the narrative Miss Jessica has been promoting publicly is false." My heart beat so fast I thought I was going to faint. However, the judge paused. "I must also consider that Liam has been living with his mother for the last few years, and that abrupt changes can be traumatic for a child his age. No, it couldn't end like this. Not after everything. Therefore," the judge continued, "I order the following: shared custody between Miss Jessica and Mrs. Eleanor, with Liam spending alternating weeks with each. Miss Jessica must attend anger management therapy and parenting classes. Any additional attempt at parental alienation will result in the complete loss of custody." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Shared custody. My grandson was going to be able to be with me legally. Jessica could no longer take him from me at her whim. "Additionally," added the judge, looking directly at Jessica, "I order that all public defamation against Mrs. Eleanor cease immediately. You must delete all posts on social media containing false accusations. If you do not, you will face charges for defamation and contempt of court." Jessica collapsed in her chair, sobbing. Her lawyers tried to calm her, but she pushed them away, screaming that this was unfair, that they were taking her son. I couldn't speak. Tears rolled down my face, but this time they were tears of relief, of gratitude, of victory. The first week Liam came to stay with me officially, with legal papers backing it, was like a dream. The boy arrived with his small backpack, ran to my arms, and cried for 20 minutes straight. They weren't tears of sadness. They were pure relief. "I don't have to hide to love you anymore, Grandma," he told me that night, while I tucked him into the sofa. I had made his bed again. "I don't have to pretend I don't remember you." My heart filled with a happiness I hadn't felt in years. But I knew this wasn't over. Jessica wasn't going to accept this defeat easily, and I was right. The day after the ruling, Jessica started calling me constantly. She left voice messages screaming, threatening, crying. She said I had stolen her son, that I had used my age to manipulate the judge, that she was going to appeal the decision. Sterling advised me to document everything. Every call, every message, every attempt by Jessica to violate the court order. And there were many attempts. The first time I had to return Liam after my week with him, Jessica arrived 2 hours late to pick him up. When she finally appeared, she was disheveled, with red eyes, and smelled of alcohol. I refused to hand Liam over to her in that state, and called Ryan to come mediate. "You can't keep him," shouted Jessica, trying to enter my apartment by force. "It's my week." The judge said, "It's my week." The judge also said you had to be sober and responsible, I replied, blocking the door. and clearly you are not. Ryan arrived with Sarah. Between the two of them, they convinced Jessica to go home, sleep, and come back for Liam the next day when she was in better condition. Jessica left crying, cursing, saying we were all against her. The next day, Andrew came to pick up Liam in her place. Jessica is not doing well, he told me with genuine concern. The sentence destroyed her. She is drinking a lot. She isn't going to the parenting classes the judge ordered. I'm worried about what might happen when Liam is with her. Can you keep him this week? I asked him. You still have rights as a father, even if they are adoptive. Jessica never let me adopt him legally, Andrew sighed. She always said we would do it later, but now I understand it was because she wanted to maintain total control over him. Liam spent that week with Andrew anyway, who had a nice and quiet apartment. It was better that way. The boy needed stability, not the chaos Jessica was living in. But when my next week with Liam arrived, things improved dramatically. We established a routine. I took him to school, picked him up, we did his homework together, I cooked his favorite meals, we watched movies at night. It was everything I had dreamed of during those years of forced separation. The teacher told me Liam had gone back to being the happy boy he was before. He participated in class, played with his friends, smiled. The difference was noticeable to everyone. Whatever is happening at home, it's working, the teacher told me with a warm smile. That boy is blooming again. Meanwhile, Jessica continued in a downward spiral. She didn't delete the social media posts, as the judge had ordered. In fact, she posted more, now attacking the judicial system, saying judges were corrupt, that they had taken her son unjustly. Sterling filed a motion for contempt of court. Jessica was cited again and fined $5,000 for not complying with the judge's order. Since she didn't have that money, Andrew ended up paying it for Liam's sake, but he made it very clear it was the last time he would help her. You have burned all your bridges, Jessica, Andrew told her when he gave her the check. And the saddest part is the only thing you had to do was be honest. Be a good mother, but you chose the path of deceit and manipulation. Jessica threw the check in his face and screamed that he had never been a real father to Liam anyway, that he had just been a source of money. Nothing more. Andrew left knowing he had dodged a bullet by separating from her. The weeks Liam spent with Jessica were difficult for everyone. The boy returned to my house after each one looking tired, sad, sometimes hungry because Jessica forgot to cook. Once he came with the same clothes he had worn a week before, unwashed. I documented everything. I took photos. I wrote notes with dates and times. Sterling had told me that if things didn't improve, we could ask for full custody based on neglect. But then something happened that no one expected. Something that changed everything again. One afternoon, 3 months after the shared custody sentence, I received a call from a number I hadn't seen in more than 20 years. It was my sister, Aunt Margaret. Margaret and I had been estranged since she left the country 2 decades ago to work in California. She had started cleaning houses, but over the years she had saved, studied, and eventually opened her own commercial cleaning franchise. The last I heard of her, she had contracts with large office buildings and was doing very well. Eleanor. Her voice sounded different, more mature, more confident. I know it's been many years, but I just found out what is happening with Jessica, and I needed to call you. How did you find out? I asked, surprised. A cousin sent me Jessica's posts, explained Margaret. And then I investigated. I spoke with Ryan. He told me everything. The lies, the abandonment of Liam, how she has treated you. Eleanor. I am furious. I didn't know what to say. Margaret and I had never been very close. She had always been the ambitious sister, the one who wanted more than our poor family could offer. She had left without looking back, and we had barely spoken in all these years. I just sold my company, continued Margaret, for $2 million. And I am coming back to the city next week. I need to see you, sister. I need to meet my great-nephew, and I need to help you put an end to all this. $2 million. I couldn't even process that amount of money. My sister, the one who had grown up just as poor as me, was now a millionaire. I don't need your money, Margaret, I told her with pride. I already got shared custody. Things are getting better. It's not just about money, replied Margaret firmly. It's about the fact that our family has allowed that spoiled and abusive girl to destroy you for too long, and I have the resources now to ensure that never happens again. A week later, Margaret arrived at my door. I almost didn't recognize her. She wore elegant clothes, had perfect hair, looked like a successful businesswoman. But when she hugged me, she was the same sister I remembered from our childhood. "Let me see this horrible apartment you still live in," said Margaret, looking around with affectionate disapproval. "Sister, with what you pay in rent here, I could buy you a house." "I can't accept that," I protested. "I'm not asking." Margaret took out her phone and started searching for properties. "I already spoke with Ryan. I already have a real estate agent looking for houses in good neighborhoods. Liam needs his own room, not sleeping on a sofa, and you need a place where you can age with dignity." In the following days, Margaret transformed my life. She found a small but beautiful house in a safe neighborhood. 3 bedrooms, a garden, close to Liam's school. She bought it in cash and put the deed in my name. "It's yours," she told me when she handed me the keys. "No mortgage, no debts. Yours forever." I cried in her arms like I hadn't cried in years. "I don't deserve this." "You deserve this and much more." Margaret squeezed me tight. "You sacrificed your whole life for your children. For me too, before I left. It's time someone sacrificed for you." But Margaret didn't stop there. She hired the best family lawyer in the city, one who charged $500 an hour, to replace Sterling in my case. Not because Sterling wasn't good, but because she wanted to ensure we had the best team possible. "We are going for full custody," announced Margaret in a meeting with the new lawyer. "Jessica has proven she cannot take care of Liam adequately. We have documentation of neglect. It is time to end this once and for all." She also helped me open a small bakery, something I had always dreamed of doing but never had the money for. She bought me the equipment, rented a small locale, and even hired someone to help me with the business. "You were always incredible at baking," Margaret told me. "It's time the world knew it and paid you for it." When Jessica found out Margaret was back and helping me, she exploded. She posted on social media that now I had money to buy judges and lawyers, that everything was a conspiracy against her. But no one believed her anymore. Her own previous posts, full of lies, had destroyed her credibility. People who used to support her now commented things like, "Something doesn't add up in your story, and why do you keep lying?" Margaret also did something I never would have had the courage to do. She sued Jessica for defamation on my behalf. The expensive lawyer she hired prepared a civil lawsuit for all the fake posts, all the accusations of abuse and neglect Jessica had published. "It's going to cost more than she has," the lawyer warned me. "But the point is to send a message. You can't keep destroying a reputation without consequences." The lawsuit was filed, and Jessica received the notification. Ryan told me she had had a complete breakdown. She called everyone crying, saying the family had abandoned her, that everyone was against her. "Maybe it's what she needs," said Ryan with sadness. "To hit rock bottom, to face the real consequences of her actions. It is the only way she might change." 6 months after Margaret returned to my life, everything had changed completely. I lived in my new house with Liam, who now had his own room decorated with everything an 11-year-old boy could dream of. My bakery was doing well, with regular customers coming for my pies and sweet bread. And most importantly, Liam was happy. The lawsuit for full custody went to court a month after we filed it. This time, with all the documentation of neglect we had gathered and the testimony of Andrew, the teacher, and even neighbors of Jessica who had seen her deterioration, the judge had no doubts. "Full custody to Mrs. Eleanor," ruled the judge. "Miss Jessica will have supervised visits once a month until she completes substance abuse treatment and demonstrates stability for a minimum of 6 months. Jessica didn't even cry this time. She just sat there, staring into space, completely defeated. She had lost everything: her son, her reputation, her marriage, and now she faced a defamation lawsuit she couldn't pay. Margaret's lawyer negotiated a settlement. Jessica would delete all defamatory posts, publish a public apology admitting she had lied, and pay legal fees in installments she could handle. In exchange, we would drop the more severe charges. "I don't want to destroy her completely," I told Margaret when we discussed the deal. "She is still my daughter, no matter how much she hurt me." "You are too good, sister," sighed Margaret. "But okay. Maybe this gives her a chance to rebuild her life correctly this time." Jessica published the apology. It was brief, forced, but it was there. She admitted she had lied about her childhood, about who had raised Liam, about everything. The comments were brutal. People who previously defended her now called her a liar, manipulator. She lost most of her followers in a matter of days. The first supervised visit was awkward. Jessica arrived quiet, thin, looking years older than she was. Liam greeted her politely, but without the affection a son should have for his mother. They spent an hour together in a park, with a social services supervisor present, and didn't have much to say to each other. When Jessica left, Liam came to hug me. "Do I have to keep seeing her, Grandma?" "For now, yes, my love." I stroked his hair. "But only once a month, and only if you want to. No one is going to force you to do anything ever again." Ryan also benefited from Margaret's return. She lent him money, interest-free, to buy the house he and Sarah had been dreaming of. "Family helps family," was all she said when Ryan tried to thank her. Andrew started coming to visit us often. Although he had never legally adopted Liam, he had developed a genuine affection for the boy during the years he was married to Jessica. I asked him to continue being part of Liam's life, and he happily accepted. "He is the only son I will have," Andrew told me one day while we watched Liam play in the garden. "And even though he isn't mine by blood, I love him as if he were. Thank you for letting me continue being his Uncle Andrew." My bakery grew more than I expected. Margaret invested more money to expand, hire more staff, and even open a second location. At my 61 years, I had become a small business owner. It was something I never would have imagined possible. "You always knew how to make magic with flour and sugar," Margaret told me proudly on the day of the second store's opening. It was time the world knew. As for Jessica, I heard she finally entered therapy for real. Not court-ordered, but real therapy to work on her issues. Ryan told me she had admitted, finally, that she had a lot of resentment accumulated since childhood, that she had always felt she wasn't enough, that poverty had scarred her more than she wanted to admit. "It doesn't justify what she did to you," clarified Ryan. "But at least she is starting to understand why she did it." 1 year after the final sentence, Jessica called me. Not to fight, not to threaten, just to talk. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said with a tired voice. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I needed to tell you that I finally understand everything you sacrificed. And I'm sorry I didn't see it before." I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence stretch between us, processing her words. "Thank you for saying it," I said finally. "But Jessica, words are easy. Real changes take time." "I know," she whispered. "And I'm going to take that time. I'm going to work on myself. Not to get Liam back, because I know I lost him, but to be a better person someday." We hung up without promises, without magical reconciliation. But it was a start, something more than we had had in years. Liam is blooming. He gets good grades. He has friends. He smiles every day. He helps me at the bakery on weekends, learning to make the same recipes I learned from my mother and she from hers. He is building happy memories to replace the painful ones. And I, at 61, finally found peace. I have my house, my business, my grandson, the support of my sister, and my son. Jessica took years of my life, caused me unimaginable pain, but in the end, the truth won. Now, when I sit on the porch of my house watching Liam play in the garden, when I bake pies in my own bakery, when I go to sleep without fear that someone will take what I love, I know it was worth it. Every tear, every struggle, every moment of pain. Because justice arrived late, but it arrived. And this old woman who supposedly had abandoned her children now lives surrounded by love, success, and the satisfaction of knowing I did the right thing. Always, even when no one was watching.